In Nancy Drew Files number 8, Ned Nickerson breaks up with Nancy Drew because she's a horrible girlfriend. Argo Fump Book Review, Argo Fump Book Review. 2 Points to Murder was written in February 1987. It's the first book in the series to take place in the month it was written. Take note, Spring Break in October book. The book begins with Nancy and her friends going to Emerson University. Nancy's boyfriend Ned Nickerson is the captain of the college basketball team, and they're hoping to make the NCAA playoffs this year. Sadly, someone has been playing pranks on the team, and the coach needs Nancy to figure out who it is. Oh, and there's an assaulter on campus who is beating up random students, but for whatever reason, nobody thinks it's important. Nancy's relationship is in a bad place right now. She's hoping to improve things. Our heavy-handed author mentions this 5 times in the first chapter. Ned introduces Nancy to Mike O'Shea, the other team captain. Mike is very intense, and he needs a lot of alone time. Mike gets especially depressed when the practical joker leaves an effigy hanging from a basketball net. Even worse, during the big game, somebody attacks the mascot costume. No! What kind of monster would hurt Willie the Wildcat? Emerson still wins the game, but naturally they lose their big lead. Ned takes Nancy and her friends to his frat house during the after-game celebration. There is no underage drinking or inappropriate behavior whatsoever. You know, as long as we're living in Fantasyland, I want a Nancy Drew pony. Nancy accidentally enters Mike's bedroom, where she finds evidence that proves Mike made the effigy. Nancy and Ned get into a big fight over whether or not Mike is guilty. Ned maintains that he trusts his co-captain and that Mike has no motive. Nancy, meanwhile, has solid evidence. Ding ding! The following day, Nancy overhears a student named Captain Hook talking about the line and putting down a 10-timer. Captain Hook is later brutally attacked. The main suspect is Peter Pan. I mean, the campus assaulter. Nancy wants to patch things up with Ned, so they go out on a date and she tries to apologize for accusing his best friend. Somehow, the apology morphs into a bold assertion that she will not stop her investigation until Mike is in jail. Ned calls Nancy out on giving the worst apology ever. Ding! Nancy investigates the 2 innocent suspects, and her attention wanders onto the campus assaulter. The assaulter drives a black Camaro, and whoa, that is an ugly car. The assaulter tries to run Nancy over, he shoots out the tires on the team's basketball bus, and there's a chase sequence through a heating plant. All 3 times, Nancy doesn't remember to get the license plate number until after the car leaves. Ding! Nancy and Ned have another argument, and she is so mad that she decides to get more evidence. She breaks into Mike's locker, where she finds $2,000 in cash, along with a list of opponents and numbers. While exploring the rest of the locker room, Nancy gets trapped inside the sauna. The culprit turns on the heat, forcing Nancy to take off her clothes. Naked Nancy, I'm going to skip to the next chapter if that's okay with you. Nancy confronts Mike with all of her evidence. She breaks down his barriers until Mike becomes calm and determined. He thanks Nancy for convincing him to cease his illegal activities and do the right thing. The right thing, in this case, is apparently go away without telling Nancy who the culprit is. 6 hours later, the culprit pushes Mike off a 2-story building. Great, now Nancy and Ned are gonna have to find someone new to argue about. During the final basketball game, George makes a random comment and Nancy realizes the culprit is Dr. Riggs. Who? The team physician. He appeared on pages 9, 116, and 128. Notice the huge gap in between his consecutive appearances. Dr. Riggs has been running an illegal gambling ring, and he's paying off some of the players. The practical joker was a cover, so the team would have an excuse to play poorly and not beat the point spread. All students who couldn't pay their gambling debts became victims of the campus assaulter. Remember book 4 when Nancy forced her friends to wait outside while she confronted the culprit? It was supposed to make it more safe for her, but it ended up being a bad move because it left her alone and vulnerable while the culprit pulled out a gun on her. Apparently, Nancy didn't learn her lesson the first time around because the exact same thing happens again. Ding ding! Riggs knocks Nancy out with chloroform. When she wakes up, she meets the campus assaulter. She tricks him into monologuing, then escapes to the gym. The culprit chases her, and Nancy is forced to hotwire a parade float so she can break through the locked exit doors. Let me repeat that. Nancy Drew hotwires a parade float and smashes it into a glass door. What do you think, Nancy Drew, Pony? Yeah, I'm also surprised this escape sequence hasn't appeared in a James Bond film. The book ends with Nancy and Ned having a serious talk. He apologizes for being angry with her because she was right all along about Mike. She forgives him, and they resolve to be more considerate of each other's feelings in the future. That probably was the original ending to this book. Instead, we get a one-sided 2-page argument. Ned cannot handle Nancy's constant suspicions, the way she ignores his opinions, and the fact that she considers random mysteries to be more important than their relationship. Ding, 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 ding! So, it's over. Ned says they should see other people, and he says they can still be friends. Maybe. Congratulations, Ned. Here's your man card back. Post-book follow-up. To my knowledge, this is the first book in the series which enlisted the help of actual experts. The special acknowledgement section thanks Marvin Kaye, a mystery writer who currently edits Sherlock Holmes Mystery Magazine. Irvin Muchnick also gets thanked. He is a legal consultant and a writer who specializes in sports injuries. The book doesn't say who did what, but it's probably safe to guess that Marvin worked on the mystery elements, while Irv worked on the sports elements. As for the romance elements, the fights between Nancy and Ned are realistic and dramatic, except for the final fight where the two of them break up. As other reviewers have noted, Nancy and Ned's breakup is a transparent and half-hearted attempt to shake up the status quo of a stagnant series. You know how long Nancy and Ned are going to be separated from each other? 1 book. That's all. This isn't a real breakup, it's a fake breakup, an obvious trap in order to sell more books. In regards to everything else, it's a good book. In particular, the suspense-building sections were well done. There is some filler in the book, but it was interesting filler, which is indirectly related to the plot. That's much better than boring, irrelevant filler, or relevant filler, which is just a boring plot recap. Overall, I'd recommend this book. I just wouldn't recommend the breakup section, even though that's the main selling point of the book. I give Nancy Drew Files number 8, Deadly Doubles, an 8 out of 10.